What's going on, everybody? Pete here at Spawn Fly Fish, and as you've noticed, it's getting to be that time of year when we're looking forward to fall fishing. That means October Caddis, and so today we're going to tie a special October Caddis, and this is the Rocktober Caddis. So in the vise, we've got the Core 1760, and this is a size 10. For the thread here, I've just got some Veevus 140, of course, orange. So a lot of you might be used to seeing October Caddis with that big Falcon Caddis kind of body, which is great. We're going to do something a little different and really make this guy a high floater. So I've got some 2mm thin fly foam from Hairline. Of course, this is orange, and off camera here I'm making a little cut, and I'm going to show you that cut. So I've just put an arc on one side, and the reason being I'm going to tie this in just like it is right here and wrap that up and now back down. And once you've got this secured where you want that body to start, go ahead and finish tying down that foam and advance your thread all the way up to behind that hook eye. Alright, so I'm sure plenty of you have seen foam bodies and everything else, and if you've ever wondered if this is possible, well, today I'm going to show you it is possible. So there's the first wrap, and that is partially why we make that initial cut to trim a very specific shape, so that that first wrap is a little easier, a little bit less material in there, and it won't clog this hook gap. So just take your time wrapping this foam. Once you get it into a spot you like for that wrap, go ahead and hold it a little bit with your offhand and pull and tighten with your tying hand, and just repeat this all the way up the body. Take your time. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky, is the tie off. So I want that tie off right about where my finger's pointing, right there. So I'm just going to have to control that foam for now with my tying hand and use my offhand just to get a couple securing thread wraps there. And now I can let go, finish a couple more securing wraps with my tying hand, and there you have it. A very high floating caddis body in the color, just happens to be right for fall. Trim that foam, and at this point just wrap the rest of that down. Nothing to it. So now I'm going to come back to where we tied off that body, and I want you to keep in mind a couple things here. We're going to add a wing of elk hair, and then we're going to add in a bunch of hackle just so that we have a real bushy floating, high floating fly. And then we're going to actually toss some legs in there. So if I were to tie this elk hair in right here, I'd really crowd that eye. So just to give myself a visual cue, I'm going to add some thread wraps, maybe one more, and that's where I want that wing to sit. So now I can envision that wing sitting here and then the hackle coming off to the front, and there's plenty of room for me to work with. So off to the side here, that little sound means I've got the hair stacker working. And after you've stacked some hair, this is bleached elk hair, you want those ends all to line up like that. Once they do, remove it, and now our tying hand is going to replace that pinch. Now all I have to do is line up the distance. I want it right there, just past the body. Switch to your offhand. Now that pinch is not going anywhere. Get one wrap around. I'm actually going to pull up to add tension. I'm going to do that on the second wrap. And now I'll just continuously add pressure and wrap back. Once I've got 8-9 good wraps there, pull down, and we should have an elk hair wing. Nothing to it. Alright, so now what about these butts? Can we go ahead and cut those out? Not yet. Let's get our thread back up to the base where the separation of the head and body are. And if you actually take the time to observe a natural caddis, you would see that line is very important in nature. So keep in mind, a big neck on a caddis, not a problem. But for now, let's get that thread advanced in front of what will be the head. And let this fall forward, get an idea of where the head's going to be. All I'm going to do is already get a little start of a bump of thread here in the front, and that will prevent that head from clogging the eye when we go to tie it on our leader. Alright, so keeping that separated neck. Now, for this, I'm going to come back up. I'm actually going to hold these fibers in my tying hand. And once I've got that where I want, tug it and continue. Now I've got 2 good wraps there. That shouldn't move too much on me, and just continue securing that elk hair down. So now I've got a really solid visible platform for that hackle. At this point I can go in and get all my fibers the right direction here, and with the offhand holding, I'm going to bring the scissors in and just kind of follow the angle of the hook eye somewhat, and then flatten the bottom. And I'll show you what you're left with: a very pronounced caddis shaped head. Alright, we're almost done with this fly, and I mean almost. So for our hackle, I've just got a brown saddle hackle feather here, but what I've done is removed the right side. If you were looking from bottom to top, it'd be the right side of all the fibers. And the reason being, when I tie this in like so and start to wrap, I'll be on the inside of that quill, and I can make a lot of wraps. I only have fibers coming off one side of the quill, and so it makes it very easy to control how straight up and down those fibers are. And for this fly, that matters, because I do want it to really be buoyant. I don't want a bunch of fibers going the wrong direction. Just clipped out a little elk hair there, but that's alright. There we go. Alright, so before we actually wrap that hackle though, I've got some barred rubber legs from Hairline, orange, barred black. I'm going to tie one leg in on either side, right in the very smack dab middle of all that big spacing we just made. 2-3 wraps to secure, and then I'll tie this other one in. And we're going to actually tie these all the way down so that we still have all that little section we just cleared out available to us for that hackle. And there we go. And one last wrap right there. Alright, nothing to it. So let's get our feather lifted up and make sure it's going to start wrapping the proper direction for us, which it is. And then it's just simply a matter of wrap after wrap after wrap, touching wraps if you can. Get that each one as close to the previous wrap as possible. And this thing is looking mean. I like it. Get one more wrap in there, and at this point, time to tie off right behind that head. And take your time, work it through there. Make sure it's just where you want it. 2 good wraps, 3 good wraps, bingo. And pull that feather back and get 1 wrap in front there. Now we can trim this guy up. Be careful you don't damage any of the fibers you just released by wrapping that hackle like so. Alright, to make this whip finish a little bit easier, I'm just going to trim these front legs, and we don't need a ton of length on these. Again, rubber legs are just such a natural attractant, right? They're moving in the water, they don't want to stop, so I'm going to come off pretty short like so. And now this will make the whip finish just a little bit easier to get around those front legs. I'm just going to put one in here because I'm using some really strong thread on a dry fly. Don't need to go crazy. Try not to trap any of those fibers if you can. It's a little tricky. And there we go. Pull that down, make sure it's snug, and cut out that thread. So now I've got just a couple hackle fibers sitting there that I don't like where they are. So guess what? Just take them out. Nobody's gonna arrest you for cutting excess hackle out. So these rubber legs in the back here, I want it to sit just past the body where our orange foam is, but I don't need them to go all the way back behind the wing. So let's go right in the middle of those two spots, like so, and I'll just match it up on my side. I like it. And now let's put a little head cement on this thing so that we know it's not going to fall apart after it gets munched on. Alright, this thing is mean. If you've ever been on the water during an October caddis hatch, it's pretty incredible. The nice thing is there doesn't have to be an active hatch for those fish to remember what that bug is and how good it is for them, a little protein, and they're trying to pack on weight before winter. So once it starts to cool down a little, have these tied up and ready to go. And if a little cement here trickles into the head, by all means don't freak out. That's a good thing. That's going to give us some more strength, and I don't know of a fly that couldn't use more strength. So there you have it, folks. The Rocktober foam-bodied caddis, and this thing is meant to not just catch fish but float all day and drive those little fishies nuts. So I hope you enjoy this one. Hope you tie a bunch of them. If you do, please send us some photos so we can see what you're tying. And as always, leave any comments below, and please remember to hit like and subscribe, and we will see you guys on the water.